Hi everybody, my name's Ruthie Barger and I'm a real alcoholic. Today we are on page 60, last paragraph down, next to the last paragraph from the bottom, being convinced. Now we just went over some really heavy duty stuff last week, how it works. And that is what this whole book is about, with these 12 steps. So we went through the ABCs of AA, and being convinced, we are now at step 3. Now, being convinced means that we have come to the conclusions of steps 1 and steps 2. Steps 1 and 2 are not steps that we work. These are conclusions that we come to. Step 1 is the only step that is not religious in nature. It is the only step that you can do 100%. And it's the only step that you can do for a whole 24 hours, 100%. So step 1 is giving us bringing us to the conclusion of where we are powerless. So that means that if we are powerless, that we need a solution. And that solution is power. And that's going to bring us to step 2. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The word is could, not would, but could. There's some things you got to do in order for that to happen. And that is steps 3 through 12. So that's where we're at right now. Being convinced, by this time you should have come to the conclusions of steps 1 and 2. And that's bringing us to step 3. Now, I get a little chuckle whenever I hear people talk about them turning their will and their lives over the care of God in the 3rd step. If I was able and capable of turning my will and my life over to the care of God in the 3rd step, why would I want to do step 4? Why would I want to do step 5? I would have no need to do any further than that, because I would be the kind of person that I wanted to be. But the word in the 3rd step is that we made a decision. A decision implies an action, but a decision in and of itself does nothing. If I decide I'm going to go to the bathroom, if I don't get up off of this chair, what do you think's going to happen? I think I'll be peeing on the floor, don't you think? So a decision implies an action, but a decision does nothing. So what we're doing in the third step is making a decision. That's the action in step 3, is making a decision. A decision does nothing. A decision implies an action, but a decision does nothing. 3 frogs sitting on a log, and one of them decides to jump off. How many frogs we got on the log?
3.
Yes, still got 3, because he didn't do nothing. He's just sitting there making the decision. He's probably still there making a decision. Okay, in the third step, we talk about turning our will. Our will is our thinking. If I want to make a last will and testament, I go to the lawyer and I have him put down on a piece of paper what I'm thinking. Okay? That's what a will is. My life is my actions. So that is, I don't even know what my will and my life is in the third step. But I'm making a decision that whatever it is, that one of these days, God's going to get it. And in the meantime, I'm going to practice. Now, let me show you how you practice. Step 3. Now, if, just for a minute, we're going to call you God. Is that all right? All right, she's going to be God, and I'm going to be me. And just a few minutes ago, we did a third step prayer. And I asked God to relieve me of the bondage of self. Get me out of my way. That's what I did. That's what we do when we say that third step prayer. We're asking God to get us out of our way. So God, this right here, I don't know what it is, but we're going to call it my will and my life. Okay? I'm going to give them to you. All right? Things are going good. Bills are paid. Cars running good. Money's all right. But wait a minute. My hot water tank went out. Now I got to sit here and cuss a little bit. What happened here? What am I doing here? Oh, here, God. All right, you got it now. So I did that. I turned my will and my life over to care of God. Everything's going good. And then don't you know I got in a car wreck? Well, don't you know I took my will and my life back, whatever it was, because I'm running the show now. I had a car wreck. So, see, this is how we go about working step 3. And there's some days I can turn my will and my life over to the care of God for maybe 2 or 3 days. And then before I know it, I got it right back in my hand. And it wasn't a conscious decision that I grabbed them back. It's just that this is where they've been all my life. I've been running the show a long time. So this is what step 3 is all about. This is making the decision and then practicing. And then sometime before I die, God's going to get the whole shooting match. And that's when step 3 is completed. But the rest of the time, if you're still sucking air, you're still working on step 3. Okay? Because you're sucking air. And when you're sucking air, that means you're a human being. And human beings make mistakes. Because that's the way God made us. If he wanted us to be perfect, we'd have wings. We'd be perfect. We'd be angels. But he made us human beings. Human beings are flawed. That's the way God made us. So this business of being a human being is something that we're going to have to work with our alcoholism. This is why we are not going for perfection. We're only going for progress. Little tiny baby steps. And sometime you're going to take a couple giant steps backwards before you make them baby steps forward, okay? But that's called life on life's terms. So let's get into the book and see what we have to say here.
We were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood Him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be.
Have we handed out these papers on basic character defects of self, basic instincts of life?
Yep.
Now, these are something that we are going to need to know, not just in step 3, but we're going to need to know this for the rest of our life. Basic instincts of life that create self. All human problems are rooted in self. All human problems are rooted in self. So I have to find out about self. Because I found out that all of my problems, see, up until now, I thought my problem was booze. My problem was me. The only one I've ever had. Me. I am the problem. So I have to start finding out about me. I've been running away from me all of my life. And when I was 18 years old, I found the perfect solution. It was called Black Velvet. Yeah. And as long as I was drunk, I was away from me. Because I was all kind of other people. Yeah, I had, that woman on the Black Velvet commercial didn't have nothing on me at the beginning of the night. They don't take a picture of her at 2:30 in the morning. Where she's laying down all right, with puke all over the front of her. Her hair ain't done anymore. She's MFing everybody she knows. Yeah, that's what Black Velvet did for me. And that for me was a solution. So I got to start finding out about self. And I find out that those basic instincts of life that create self are the 3 S's. My social instincts, my security instincts, and my sexual instincts. That is what creates me. Social instincts, security instincts, and sexual instincts. So whenever I do this inventory on step 4, there is a part of step 4 that I am going to find out person, places, and things and how they affected my social security and sexual instincts. And this way we can get down to what part of me was being affected. And what can I do about that? Because it's my inventory. It's not the person in column 1. It ain't their inventory. It's my inventory. So, but these are things that we are going to have to start finding out about self in order to do a 4th step. So let's go ahead and see what the book has to say.
Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw.
So you see, these are a couple things that we are going to have to give up. Is selfishness and self-centeredness. Contrary to popular belief, my belly button is not the center of the universe, and neither is yours. I know that might take some of you by shock, but yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, our belly button is not the center of the universe. So I am going to have to give up selfishness and self-centeredness. This is so important for my recovery. I have to get me out of my way. I have to be relieved of the bondage of self. Okay.
A safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity? Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt.
Okay. I'm going to say something very profound, and I want you to listen to me as I say it. Hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. So only God can overcome self. And so many of us, not so many of us, all of us come to Alcoholics Anonymous as professional victims. Yes, we just crawled down over the cross. If you want, I'll let you feel the holes in my hand because I've given it all up for you. Yeah, professional victim. That's me. But we're all coming through the same door. And there's so much information about that door. You know, you walk through that door and you look in here and you don't see nothing but human beings. And it's going to tell us later on here that by the time we reach that door that we are beyond human aid. By the time you get to that door, you are beyond human aid. And you're walking into a room filled with human beings. Now, you see where the person at the door might have a little skepticism about walking in here. They're saying, you know, I was expecting professional help here. And there, over there sits somebody I used to drink with. I don't see any professionals in here. You see professional drunks. And that's the only thing you see in here. So, you know, but we have something to offer the man at the door. Because, see, we've been where he's at. We've been exactly where he is at. But we got something that he don't. I've been away from a drink 2 days now. Maybe a week. And yes, there are people out there that's wanting to know how the hell you stayed away from a drink for 2 days. How did you do that? And that's what we have to offer the new man. I've been away from that drink for a month. I've been away from that drink 2 months, or ever how long it's been. And the man you're going to be talking to is going to think you're lying. So the only thing that we really have to tell that man is about step 1. I used to be a drunk just like you, and I don't have to drink anymore. And it tells us in our book that recovery begins when I share my experience, strength, and hope. My experience, my strength, and my hope. I remember the first man that I heard speak at a meeting. And he was standing up there at the podium, and he was looking all clean, and he had on a jacket and a tie. And he said when he came to AA that he had a nickel in his pocket and shit in his pants. That's what he had. Yep. But I mean, he looked classy as hell. But he was sober like 15 years. So I paid attention to that man. And I watched him from a distance. So let's get back into the book.
So, our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible.
Did you hear that? Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it will kill us. God makes that possible. Yeah, He's going to give you enough rope. You know, that reminds me of a joke I heard. A little boy falls off of a mountain. And he's falling down the mountain, and grabs onto this little tree. And with everything that he had in him, he says, God, please help me. And he's listening, and he hears this big thunderous voice come out of the clouds. And the voice says, my son, let go of the branch. The little boy's holding on to the branch, and he yells back up into heaven, is there anybody else up there? And that's us and God, huh? We're holding on to that branch. God, help me. Let go of the branch. Is there anybody else up there? Huh? Yeah, we ain't listening to God. So this is, alcoholics are by our very nature self-destructive. Alcoholism is often referred to as committing suicide on the installment plan. Alcoholism. Yeah, I'll quit tomorrow. Yeah, but tomorrow never happens. Yeah, committing suicide on the installment plan. So we are self-destructive. And God allows that to happen. So maybe you ain't speaking to God yet. Maybe you better strike up a conversation. He likes to hear strange voices.
And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us have moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom.
Okay. It just gave us a keystone. And if you remember back on page 12, we laid a foundation on willingness. And then on page 47, we put in a keystone, a cornerstone of belief. And now here we are putting in a keystone to let you know that we are building an arch. And the keystone is God. And the keystone is what holds it all together. So we got the foundation, the cornerstone, and the keystone. And a little bit further on, we're going to talk about passing through this keystone, through the new and triumphant arch where we will be into freedom. But we've got to see it. We got all of our stones in the right place. We're trying to mix mortar without sand. You know, did you skimp on the cement? You know, but here we are. We're putting in the keystone, which is of the arch, which is God. And this is the beginning of the change. And this is some of the promises, the beginning of the change.
When we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed, if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life.
What we could contribute to life, not take from life. We're here to contribute to life.
As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, or the hereafter. We were reborn.
Wow. We were reborn. Not born again. Reborn. You're getting another chance. I look out on a room like this and I ask you, how many times are you supposed to be dead? How many times are you supposed to be crippled and blind and maimed and all of that? And yet here you are. Here you sit. Everything's hooked on. Everything's working. You even got a mind that's working in spite of yourself. Yeah, you're getting a second chance. You were reborn. You're getting another chance at this thing called life. Now, when you answer all them questions like how many times you're supposed to be dead, how many times you're supposed to be maimed, crippled, blind, there's so many things, terrible things that happen to alcoholics. And they don't even put alcoholism on a death certificate. They call it all kind of things. But they don't call it alcoholism. They call it a car wreck. They call it a motorcycle accident. They call it the house burned down because the drunk passed out and with a lit cigarette burnt the house down. We call it all kind of things. But we never call it alcoholism. So if they were to start putting on the death certificate those people that died of alcoholism, cause of death, alcoholism, they could probably be running off mimeograph copies of death certificates. Because there's a whole bunch of us. And we do all kind of crazy things. And one of them is killing ourselves. Just trying to have fun. And then there's always the one that likes to suck on a shotgun and blow the back of their head off. So it's a terrible thing the way alcoholics die. And none of them are pretty. None of them are pretty. So let's go ahead and do the third step prayer as it is here in the book.
We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
By the way, that's the speed that we should say the third step prayer. I don't know, we got some people doing speed in here because whenever you're doing the third step prayer, my mouth don't even talk that fast.
Yeah, really, thank you.
And the same way with the Lord's Prayer. I can't talk that fast.
We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand.
Well, let me tell you what. We have over 3 million members of Alcoholics Anonymous today. And I think that you should be able to say this prayer with an understanding human being. Unless you're up on the polar ice cap or someplace like that. But, that's one of the reasons that we start this meeting off with the third step prayer. And if you don't get nothing else out of this meeting, at least you'll know how to recite the third step prayer. Yeah, if you got nothing else out of it, you know the third step prayer. So, now this was just a beginning. Okay.
The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once.
Especially when you're taking it up a Cook Forest or with your sponsor up at Nelson Ledges, or, finding some place where God is. And, we're going to get in how to find God, later on. So I think we're going to stop right there for now, and next we're going to launch out on a course of vigorous action. And that means that we're going to start with our first action step, and that's going to be step 1 or step 4. And that's what we're going to get into next week. So with no more from me, I'll turn the meeting over to John.
Hello, everybody. Say John.